a lot of people criticized me when I said that I just don't feel it right, the fact that Picard has a farm. And some people were moaning that it's not a farm, it's a vineyard. And I will moan back at you saying that a vineyard is a grape farm. Ugh, take that. But they pointed out that no, this is from the next generation, like it's established lore that Picard has a farm. And it's like, okay, but if it's established lore that doesn't make sense then, it also doesn't make sense now. Again, you have replicators. Why would people have vineyards? Uh, Surely there would be vegans complaining that you're killing insects and you're killing rodents and you're killing the little birdies in order to plant your hipsterish vineyard in a society that doesn't need it, considering the fact that you have replicators. Then you also have holodecks. Like if it's all about the exercise, you just have a holodeck where you become a farmer all day. To me, it just doesn't make sense, especially since not everyone could have a vineyard. Like, think about it. The only thing that would explain this is like if Picard is part of the inner party, the ruling elites, and he gets to have privileges that other people don't. I mean, maybe the wine tastes better than the one replicated, so I guess like only the elites in society, such as admirals and politicians, would be able to have the luxury of drinking this. But then it kind of destroys the Star Trek mythos that everyone is equal and everyone lives the same and they're just there to pursue their own happiness and whatever. Like, yeah, I guess, but not everyone can have a vineyard now, can they? So that's an interesting conversation. You know, it's not a criticism that it just doesn't make sense. It's something that I would want the movie to explore more, or the show to explore more. Like, explain to me, why can Picard have a vineyard? Like, I'm legitimately curious. You know, that something is cracking in this perfect utopian society. But anyway, right? My another criticism that I saw online is that Picard and Data were never friends. And it's true, as you watch The Next Generation, you get the vibe that they respected each other and they valued each other professionally. But whenever Data chose to spend free time, he would choose to spend it with almost everyone on the ship except Picard. And there are plenty of examples when Data and LaForge confess their friendship to one another. And there's no such scene between Data and Picard, so it doesn't make sense why Picard, instead of dreaming of 2B, or other hot mamacita androids, he is having wet dreams with Data nonstop. And the answer to this is that it makes sense within the lore if you think about it, because they said at the end, Data sacrificed himself in order to save Picard's life. So yeah, I mean, such an experience, I suppose, would make someone think about all the memories and feel guilty about not spending more time with that particular person. And you know, like I don't mind the fact that they retconned a very close friendship to the point of obsession between Picard and Data. What I do mind is the fact that they believe they have turned Starfleet into the villains, which is absolute rubbish. Now, I'm not saying that the writers don't want to turn Starfleet into the villains, but what I'm saying is that the script they have wrote, when presented to the audience, they do not view Starfleet as the villains. And this is something that shows the writers have principles that are so different than that of the average audience that they just cannot write a good script. So let me explain what I mean. Okay, now, the story of Picard is that the Romulan star was about to explode. So the Romulan star is going supernova and is about to kill everyone on the planet. It's not explained why the Romulans didn't foresee this. I mean, they are more scientifically advanced than the Federation, arguably. It's not explained why the Romulans' own ships aren't trying to evacuate the planet. What is said is that Starfleet, at the best of Picard, at the beckon of Picard, is now mounting this never before seen rescue mission. So almost all of their military vessels are going to go towards Romulan in order to try to rescue them from the exploding star. And while they're doing this, while their entire armada is moving towards the destination of the rescue mission, synthetic androids going haywire decided to blow up Mars. So when this happens, Starfleet pulls all of its ships back, refuses to go into the rescue mission, and outlaws the research and the construction of synthetics. And all of this, according to the screenwriters, for some reason makes Starfleet evil because they don't have this level of pathological empathy where they would risk the safety of their home planets in order to save their enemies. So it's not that Starfleet decided to make the sun go supernova and destroy the Romulan planets. No, it's the fact that they are choosing to do inaction, that they don't want to divert their own resources in order to help an enemy. And I'm sorry, but Picard apparently seems bewildered by this. And don't you have the Prime Directive? I mean, surely there have been numerous cases where a civilization that wasn't advanced was going to destroy itself, and yet Starfleet would not intervene because of the Prime Directive. So the idea of lack of intervention wouldn't be something that shocks Picard to the core and goes like, oh yeah, wow, they're such bad guys for not wanting to intervene. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for deconstructing the Federation, because I think it's an organization that is too stupid to exist. Like, if I was in charge of the Borg, I could easily conquer the Federation. Easily. Without any hassle. All you have to do is not engage into military conflict, because that doesn't work, right? Like, the Federation seems to be on top of it. What you need to do is to say, yeah, we the Borg want to join the Federation of Planets. And you do everything possible in order to join. And then once you join, your drones are going to be much better than the average citizen of the Federation, because they not only are they more durable and able to perform better, but they are also containing the vast knowledge of the entire Borg species in one individual. So they're going to outperform everyone. And they're going to quickly rise up onto places of power, into positions of power. Obviously, talking against the Borg would be politically incorrect, because now you're a racist. Like, well, why do you hate the drones? Oh, they're taking your job. Oh, you racist, shut up. And then when the Borg finally manages to reach those positions of power where they hold the keys to the entire defense system, that's when you start turning the Federation. That's when you attack. You know, like, I could make this into a great Star Trek season. A spin-off, I guess, because there would be no more continuation after it. If you look at it from a pragmatic point, Starfleet does not have a moral obligation to save Romulans. The Romulan Empire has a moral obligation to save them. Like, the people on Romulan already have an organization that should protect them. If the people from Starfleet prioritize the Romulans over their own planets, then who is going to defend their own planets? Because there's not another organization that's supposed to defend them. Like, the people on Mars are probably really butthurt over Picard's decision to leave them undefended. So I generally, like, when I watch The Next Generation, whenever they try to make a point of morality, or whatever they were trying to push some new way of thinking onto the public, it made sense. Like, any person watching an episode would make sense. Like, there's an episode where they went back in time and some woman wanted to take away all the weapons from the United States, like just disarm the United States, which at the time was a very popular leftist point from the hippie movement. So what ended up happening is that they disarmed the United States, and then Russia invaded and took over, and Earth became this tyrannical dictatorship under Soviet Russia. And that was like back then, when, you know, people consider Star Trek to be leftist. And by the way, it was left-leaning, but it didn't go into the realms of lunacy. Another example would be an episode from Voyager where 7 of 9 gets raped. Well, she doesn't really get raped, but it's implied that a doctor used some medication in order to knock her out, and then stole some of her nanites. And the doctor of the ship, which at the point becomes a feminist, I guess, tries to encourage her to believe that she got raped and she should be upset about it. Even though at first she doesn't care. Like, the doctor of the ship constantly encourages her, no, you need to care. You have been violated. You need to do that. So, even though there is no proof, there is no evidence of what has happened, eventually the doctor gets killed. And everyone feels bad because they didn't really have any evidence that he actually committed the deed. And yet a person died. So now everyone feels bad about accusing someone without evidence. And this is a show from the Voyager, which is very left-leaning and what have you. But again, like, they were at least not trying to be preachy to the audience. This is what people hate, when you're being preachy. In this particular event, Picard is being preachy to the audience by trying to get us to believe that Starfleet is turned into villains. And I don't see it. I'm sorry. I genuinely do not. Like, nothing that Starfleet did. In fact, it would have been villainous for Starfleet to just abandon all of its homeworlds, which would have then been attacked by different terrorist organizations as they're trying to rescue the Romulans. That would have been villainous. And not to mention, it's like, okay, I guess the villainous act is because they barred the research of synthetics, and they also decided to outlaw the synthetics, which apparently is now a galactic rule. Like, everyone agrees that synthetics are bad. Like, think about this. Let's assume the United States' entire military technology is now reliant on computers. It's all automated. And the computers start going Skynet. Would you believe the United States is evil for outlawing that particular branch of AI, or outlawing the idea of doing that incorporation where your entire military is owned by computers? Like, of course not. Like, you're taking measures so other people don't die. Like, I thought it's about rescuing lives. Well, apparently the lives on Mars that's burning don't matter anymore. The idea of preventing another Mars attack doesn't matter. We still need to invest resources and tech into making more synthetics. Like, why? Why are synthetics so important? Apparently, like, they weren't even like data. Like, the only synthetic that actually had the possibility of higher cognitive thought that you could actually call a life form was Data. He was the only one. So why continue this line of thinking into creating more robots that have the possibility of going haywire and attacking Starfleet planets when you can just stop it? Like, there is no need for this technology. There is no need for this AI which can just go Skynet. So no, I do not see how Starfleet has turned into villains, and I see that the screenwriters keep saying, "Oh, Picard thinks Picard." Picard doesn't think. Picard isn't real. Picard is fictional. It all depends on who gets to write Picard, and in this case, the people that have connections and money get to be in charge of the IP, so they can write Picard however they want. If you give me the IP, I can make Picard into the next Hitler. He would be like the type of person that constantly lies in his in his logs, in his Starfleet logs, because that's the only way we, the viewer, are aware of what goes on the Enterprise. It's like Captain's log, blah 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 blah. Captain's log, supplemental. Like, he could lie. All those red shirts that died on away missions. Maybe Picard just shot them, and then it's like, puts a gun to their head, bam. Or a phaser. Puts a phaser to their head and zip. And there's like Captain's log. Today the red shirt has been taken over by the fauna of the planet. Blah, blah, blah. Unfortunate. Blah, blah, blah. But there's not even any evidence, of a body, because they always would put them in a coffin and shoot them into space. So yeah, I mean, if I write Picard, I can write whatever I want. But that doesn't mean that is the same character that was written by the original screenwriter. So, again, like, I don't think that Picard is an accurate moral compass. He's a fictional character that gets to be written by whomever is in charge of the IP. The people in charge of the IP don't get vetted by the original screenwriter so that they can keep following that same person's vision. And in fact, the people who write the IP are so dumb. Like, I'm sorry for insulting Patrick, but Patrick Stewart is like, oh, Picard would have voted against Brexit. Like, motherfucker, see, you do not understand the lore. First of all, Picard is a Frenchman, right? He is a French citizen, so he would not have a say in Brexit, unless you think democracy is by allowing foreigners to vote. Maybe the Romulans, when they were the enemy, should have also had a say in how Starfleet manages things. Second of all, the European Union is against national identity, so Picard wouldn't have been a Frenchman, he would have been a proud European. So, like, all these things, like, you listen to the actors talk, and every time they open their mouth, they say things that have nothing to do with reality. They sound good, and they look nice, but in reality, it doesn't make sense. So that was some criticism regarding the Federation. Like, there's so many ways you can make the Federation evil. This isn't one of them. I generally don't see why you would consider the Federation villains for defending their own borders. And secondly, What's also strikingly interesting is the idea of making the sun go supernova. It's like, don't the Romulans have a Greta Thunberg there to warn them or something? You know, like, don't they have the technology to figure it out? Why not instead make it a virus, you know, or some calamity? That would have been even more morally interesting. It's like, do you risk Federation lives to save Romulans while at the same time risking your people getting infected? And your doctors getting infected. Like that would have been a more interesting thing, where, you know, have some foreign threat and the Federation goes in order to push them back or something. Like that would have been a lot more engaging, I were to say, than, oh yeah, the sun exploded. Maybe it's after the J.J. Abrams continuity, I don't know. But yeah, let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the comment section.